towns
So my
and
name's
one tone.
JP Ross, and I'm going to try to teach everybody how to tie flies. And the first thing that I put out for you are two different types of vices. So I'm going to go through some tools first. And there's two types of vices that I have in front of me. One is this Regal vise, and the way it works is you squeeze this cam here, and when you squeeze that, it opens up these jaws so that you can put in your hook. And these vices spin, which makes it really nice to do, and there's a strong heavy base so you can pick this up and carry it wherever you want to, and that's one particular vise that I probably will be using. The other one is the main vise that I use, and this is called a Dyna King, and this is a different type of cam, and you lift it up and there's some grooves in here where you can put your hook, and you put your hook in there, push down on this lever, and that will lock your hook into place. The main thing that you want to have happen with your vise is when you put your hook in there, you want to make sure that it doesn't move. That's it. Next thing we're going to do is go through some of the different tools. And the first thing that I always try to do is I try to have a light background, and I try to have a glass of scotch. That's the first thing that I do. The next thing is I want to go through some of the different tools and what they're used for and what they do. I'm going to go kind of clockwise around here. The first thing is actually called a hackle plier, and what this does is you can squeeze this hackle plier and you can see that these jaws will open up. Oops, like that. And here's another one. And these hackle pliers are used for holding on to hackle. So the question you have is, well, what is a hackle? Well, for lack of a better term, a hackle is some kind of feather that we're going to use. Most of the time they're chicken. And when you squeeze these, what it allows you to do is it allows you to grab onto the quill. As you can see I'm doing right here. I happen to like this kind right here. And that's the kind that you'll see me using most of the time. The next thing is scissors. As you can see, I have a lot of different scissors. And it's not because I want to collect the different scissors, it's because they all do different things. The main thing that you want to understand is have one pair of scissors that you're going to use to cut junk. Kind of a pair of scissors that you're not worried if your blades are going to get nicked up or whatever. And then you're going to have another pair of scissors that are probably going to be for fine kind of work and stuff like that. As you start tying more, you're going to find that there are different scissors that you like to use, and you're just going to acquire more scissors. If you're just getting started, you need one pair. That's it. You'll be fine. This is called a hook and hackle gauge. This is used a lot, and you'll see it'll be on my vise. And that will be able to tell the hook size and also the hackle size. It's a good tool. It's kind of like a gauge tool. They're not very expensive. The hole goes right through your vise post, and I would recommend having one of those. The next thing is a couple of hackle or hair stackers, I should say. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to put hair inside of here. You can tap this thing and it'll make all the hairs lined up. We will use these when we make an elk hair caddis. Another tool is called a bodkin, and a bodkin is really just a big needle. And this is a cool thing that Gary Bartell made for me. It's some Scotch-Brite in a film canister. I don't make film anymore, really. And it allows you to clean your bodkin, but your bodkin is a needle. You'll use that a lot. And on the other side of the bodkin, if you're going to buy one of these, get one that has a hole in it like this. And this is actually a tool for making half hitches, which I'll show you later on. Another tool for making knots is called a whip finisher. You want to make sure that you have a whip finisher. And then you've got a whole bunch of bobbins. And I have a ton of bobbins because I don't like changing thread color. I like to have another bobbin with another thread, and that's the way to go. Again, like your scissors, you need one. In this case, this is one that's just kind of has a chrome finish on it, and everything's fine. It'll work good. These have a ceramic tip. This tube here is ceramic. That keeps you from marring any of the thread and having accidental cuts or frays or anything like that. If you're going to get a bobbin, if you're going to get one, get a ceramic one if you can. If you're going to get a bunch of them, try to find a deal and get a bunch of ceramic ones. The next thing is wax. You're going to use wax. This is not chapstick. It's a big thing of wax. This works great. You can use different kinds of waxes. You're also going to use some head cement. I love Hard as Hull. I think it's an awesome product. You also can use Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails and other kind of lacquer and things like that. Just make sure you got some head cement. And then I've got this other tool, which is like a toothbrush thing that I'll use to kind of rough up some of the feathers and hair and things like that. You can use a toothbrush and just cut it down so that it's a little stiffer. And that's about it. Okay, the first thing that I have to show you is how you're going to get your thread onto your hook. Now this is a really serious hook. This is a saltwater hook. And this is just a piece of ultra chenille. And I wanted to try to give you some material so you could see what I'm trying to do. Now, in order to get started, you take your thread and you put it between you and your hook. Okay? Not from the back side, from the front side. You're going to hold it pretty tight, and you're going to put about an inch above the hook shank and about an inch below the hook shank. So you've got your hook eye, your hook shank, your bend, your barb, and your point. So this is your shank. You're going to put your thread down, and you're going to wrap your thread around the hook shank. Sometimes you might even want to do 2 times. Now, then what you do is you take your bobbin, which will be, in my case, my right hand, so it's going to be this hand, and I'm going to move it to the left, and I'm going to wrap it over this lower half tag. And as you can see, what that does is that binds it on there so that this piece doesn't do anything anymore, and I can just cut that and it'll be gone. So I'm going to repeat this a couple times to show you what I'm talking about. It's between my body and the hook shank. I got about an inch on each side. I'm going to wrap it around a couple times. Then I'm going to push it over to the left so that it grabs that, and just keep wrapping. And in most cases what you're going to do is you're going to wrap it all the way down to the end, and you're almost always going to start back here, not up here. Almost always you're going to be starting down there. And it's always good to get a good base of thread. So I'm going to do it one more time. Then I'm going to do it with a bobbin. This time I'm going to start it up close to the eye. I'm going to wrap it around one more time, and then I'm going to kink it over to the left. It just makes sense, right? You've got to go that way in order for you to bind that piece down. So now I bounded it down. That's a word, bounded it. And I'm wrapping it. And this piece would end up going up to my bobbin, and I would have a practically endless supply of thread. This piece I would cut off. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing, but with thread. So how do you hold your, so the next thing is, how do you hold your bobbin? Well, in my case I'm right-handed. I'm going to hold the bobbin like you see me holding it right here, and I'm going to put my thumb where these two pieces come together. I'm going to put my thumb right there. And again, I'm going to do about an inch up and an inch down. I'm going to wrap the bobbin, and I'm going to hold it so that it doesn't keep on falling down like this. I want to crimp the spool, this spool right here. I want to crimp this spool, if I have to, even just very, very slightly, just so that it holds it tight. I'm going to wrap around a couple times, and then I'm going to move over to the left, and I'm attaching my thread, as you can see. Oops. And now I'm going to trim that off, and once I do that, it's locked in. I'm going to wrap that tag in. You're going to hear me use words like wrap in or tag, things like that. So that's that, and I'm going to unwrap it, and I'm going to do it one more time. Wrap it around a couple times, then I'm going to move to the left and wrap over that piece. Cut off my junk, and I'm going to wrap this back all the way to the bend of the hook. Okay? So that's that. Okay, so now we're actually going to tie a fly with some of these materials that you see here. And what I'm going to try to do every time I do this is I'm going to try to go through the materials so you know what they are. This is marabou. It actually comes from a turkey and it is dyed, in this case, chartreuse. As Lefty Kreh would say, if it ain't chartreuse, what's the use? That's going to be our tail on this woolly wormy kind of thing. It's just a fly that it works, and it's easy to tie for people getting started. This crystal flash stuff is optional. I'm going to put it in just so that you people out there have a sense of how to put in this crystal flash into your tail. And this chenille type of stuff is going to be our body. It is chenille. You can make a sweater out of it, or you can make woolly buggers. So I am going to make a fly with this stuff right now, and you'll be able, if you do a couple dozen of these, it's a great fly in the springtime. It's also a great fly for perch, for walleye, for carp, for smallmouth bass. It's great for trout in the spring, and it's super, super terrific for bluegills and sunfish. Okay, so we got our thread on here, and we brought our thread all the way back to where the hook shank ends and the bend begins. So I'm going to grab a piece of marabou. I am going to hold this marabou on the top of the hook shank, as you can see. Now, you're going to start getting used to gauging your material, what they call gauging. I am right hand dominant, so I'm going to hold this with my right hand. It's going to come out of my fingernail, as you can see, like that. So it's going to come out straight. I'm not holding it like this. I'm not holding it like that. I am holding it very closely. I know I'm holding it in a way that I'm going to end up transferring it from one hand to the next. Now I want my tail, in this case, to be about, it's probably hard to tell because this hook is so big, but it's about 1.5 inches long. You can make your tail bushy. You can use 2 feathers. You can use 1. In this case, I'm using 1, and it's not very thick. It's thin, sparse, as we call it. Now, I am going to place that down so that the edge of my thumbnail is right where my thread is. And I'm going to transfer, and I'm going to join my thumbnails together. Okay, almost like I'm trying to make a little butt crack with my fingernails. I'm going to join those together, and I'm going to pinch this. Now when I pinch this, can you see there's like a white line on my fingernail? I'm pinching it pretty good. It's not, you can tell when I relax it, and when I pinch it, I'm holding it really good. Now when I relaxed it, all this feather kind of went from what was about the size of a toothpick to now about the size of half a pencil. I'm going to redo it. It's really important that you get this so that it's dense. Okay, it's not just loosely held, it's dense, like as tight as you can get it. Again, I'm going to place it down so that the edge of my thumbnail is right even with my thread. And then I'm going to make my little butt crack thing, and I'm going to exchange it to this hand. Now, when I come up, I'm actually going to go through and push the thread back in between my fingers a little bit. The common error with beginners is to loosen up your grip. And when you do that, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. So just don't do that. Bring your thread up, keeping it nice and tight, and make 3 or 4 of those kind of pinching, binding kind of wraps. And when you do that, it's going to hold that material in. Now I'm going to make a couple extra wraps, 3 or 4 wraps, just to keep that nice and secure. Now I'm going to trim. So this is the first time that we've trimmed anything. And the secret to trimming is that you hold the material with one hand, you put a little bit of tension on it, and then you kind of push down and bury those scissors as close as you can without cutting your thread. That's how you handle that. Get rid of your trash however you want to. Now it's a good idea after you trim to just kind of, don't make a big bulky mess. You're noticing every time I do this, I do 3, 4, maybe 5 wraps at the most. I don't keep on wrapping, because every time you keep wrapping, you're going to add more bulk. And then on small flies, you're going to lose space. So I added in my tail, and it's good. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some crystal flash. I'm just going to grab a little bit of it. Now, it's I'm going to be like Bob Ross, who says, the painter with the afro, probably smoked a lot of fun stuff when he was a kid. You know, it's your fly. You can do what you want to do. If you want, you can add a lot of flash or a little bit. You can add your flash on the top. You can put two pieces. You can put some flash on that side and a flash on that side. I am going to put it on the top, and the reason I'm going to put it on the top is because it's easy for you to see. If I was going to do this for myself, I probably would put it on each side. Okay, again, pinching, kind of jamming it in between my fingers like that, carefully. That was a little bit fast. I should probably work a little slower. And then a couple extra wraps to hold it on, and that's it. Okay? And take your time and be smooth with everything. The next thing is, we're going to grab some of this chenille. Now I'll give you a trick with chenille. What you want to do is you want to pull a little bit of this off, and you want to expose, oops, I'm going to cut that, expose the core material right there. Because when you wrap it in, you're going to wrap it in, see how I'm holding it with my right hand, I'm kind of gauging it, and I'm setting it up because I want to attach this right there, right at the intercept of the core material and the fluffy stuff of the chenille. I can even attach it up there. If I attach it up here, it's going to add a lot of extra bulk. So I want to try to attach the thinnest part of the material as I can. That's a general rule you're going to find with fly tying, is you always try to attach the thin part of the material. That way it doesn't add a lot of bulk to your hook shank. So there you go. There you have it. I just attached it. I've got a little bit of stuff here. Now in my case, I'm actually going to leave that piece right there, and I'm going to wrap it right in, because eventually I need to move my thread up to the eye. Now I'm going to take this material and I'm going to pass it from one hand to the next. My right hand is taking it behind the hook shank, my left hand is bringing it up, and then I'm changing hands. And as you can see, I'm putting them one after another, but they're at a little bit of an angle, so they're kind of going one after another. Now, here's another error everybody does. They wrap everything right all the way up to the hook eye like this. You never have enough room to do your head, and you're going to make a terrible looking fly. So what you want to do is, you always want to leave about the same width as your hook eye for tying off your head or doing whatever you're going to do. So I'm going to back this off to right about there. Now, I'm going to drop my thread over the chenille to lock it in. Now I'm actually going to bring this back to show you what not to do, because a lot of people, when they do this move, they will take it way back like that, and that is just plain wrong. Don't do that. Okay, take your thread, and when you drop it over, you want to drop it right in that cavity, that crevice right there. That's where you want to do it. So we're going to drop it in like this, and then like that. I'm going to do that 3, 4. I'm going to do it one more time because this hook's pretty good size. Now I'm going to cut again, and this time when I cut, it's difficult. You can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to brace my hand with my pinky over here. I'm going to hold my hand on the vise. If I try to just hold it like this, especially after all the scotch I've had, I'm going to be shaky. So I'm going to hold my hand and brace it with my pinky. Now I'm going to take another finger and I'm going to hold it on the vise over here. Now I kind of got like this tripod thing going on, so everything's nice and steady. Now I can get my scissors in there and I can cut that in one snip. Okay? Don't go in like this and just cut away and not know what you're doing. Don't cut it so close. Don't cut it out here to be safe and leave a whole bunch of junk. Just man up and cut it and take your time. Now once I did that, now I got all this excess stuff here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap this in. And to get started, we are not going to whip finish, we are just going to half hitch. And in order to half hitch, if you remember, I told you that there is this tool here called a half hitch tool. This is part of my bodkin. Okay? And I'm going to wrap the thread around that like this, and I'm going to just pull it off of this hook eye. So big it's difficult. Wrap it around that, pull it off, wrap it around, pull it off. I've seen people do the same thing with a Bic pen and take off the pen writing part. Oops, this hook eye is so big, but still you'll get the point. And I'm doing a bunch of these just to be nice and safe. That one didn't go. Do one more. And bam, we're on. Okay, it's tight. It's good to go. Now there's another way that you can do this too with your fingers. It's difficult to see. What you do is you take both of your index finger and your middle finger, and just like you were wrapping around this tool, you're going to wrap it around these two fingers like this, and then you can place it behind the hook eye and pull it up. I'll try to do more of those for you.
As they fade in my rearview mirror,
cut it.
I find something to call mine. Turn a wood on a corner post, a church steeple in the sun, sidewalk smile I won't soon forget. I'm not jaded yet. Well, I've heard enough to sing the blues or something, or for someone. Blue ain't